Welcome to the Ku-ring-gai Council Public Forum. The Public Forum is an opportunity to share your views on any issues on the Council meeting agenda and on other general matters that are important to you. It provides an opportunity for councillors to hear directly from the community, understand the needs and concerns of constituents and make more informed decisions. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here this evening. Before we begin, I'd like to outline a few procedures in relation to this evening's public forum. I want to remind everyone that this is a public forum and we must all be respectful of each other. I remind councillors of their oath of affirmation of office made under section 233A of the Act and printed at the front of the business paper. All attendees must comply with the Code of Meeting Practice and other relevant council codes, policies and procedures. This meeting is being recorded and the webcast will be published to Council's website. Councillors, council staff and speakers will be shown on camera. Attendees must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. Any statements made and actions taken by individuals are those of the individuals making them and are not endorsed or supported by Council. Councillors, council staff and members of the public must ensure that mobile phones are turned to silent during the forum. Councillors and council staff must declare and manage any conflicts of interest that they may have about any item of business that is on the agenda this evening. A few reminders for our speakers this evening. Speakers cannot use or present any props, audio or visual material. Any written material must be lodged when registering or handed to staff. Each speaker has 3 minutes to address council. A chime will sound when you have 30 seconds left to speak. If you have a lot to say, I encourage you to submit a written submission. Each councillor may ask a maximum of 2 questions. Speakers are under no obligation to answer. But if you do, if you could please limit it to 1 minute. Speakers cannot ask questions of councillors or council staff. Are there any conflict of interest declarations for councillors? And if I could just ask the 2 councillors online if they can just use the virtual hand this evening, if that's okay. Thank you. Okay, no conflicts of interest. Okay, so I'll now start with the speakers. We have a few on tonight's agenda, as well as some items from the agenda, as well as general business items. We have 14 written submissions and we have 14 written submissions that also will have residents speaking to them. Okay, so we will start with the items on the agenda. So first up, we have GB item MM1, and we have David Jeffrey Wheeler, who will be speaking for, and the topic is the transport-oriented development Todd prefers scenario update. Whenever you're ready, David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The preferred scenario that Council's put forward for the Todd is to be commended. It achieves a good balance between the need for additional housing and sound planning policy. I quote from it, "The aim is to ensure development not only meets the housing and employment targets, but also contributes positively to the character and quality of life in our centres." And it's reassuring to read elsewhere in the business papers that Council and DPHI staff have had a professional and cooperative relationship while Council developed its preferred scenario. Also reassuring to note that the legal proceedings remain on foot. Keep the stick in your hand, you're probably going to need it. And that attention is being paid to the apartment design guidance and also to heritage properties and the conservation areas. But let me turn to state significant developments. Despite the collaboration between Council and DPHI, in the final days of the extended Todd submission window, a concerning number of thought bubbles dressed up as development proposals were submitted and recorded as SSDs. There are so many things wrong with these last-minute applications that in 3 minutes I have no time to even list them. The biggest of these SSDs is opposite the end of Clarence Avenue, where I live in Killara. The proposal shows no evidence of professional design, was slapped together at the last minute, submitted on the 11th of June, and accepted the following day. It flies in the face of the alternative proposal. This and others appear to be a cynical attempt to get a foot in the door before the alternative proposal is gazetted. I stood with my neighbour yesterday and we tried to visualise a 9-storey block at the end of the road with 438 apartments. How many cars? It's a long walk for the groceries. What about the traffic? What a blight on our 9.5 metre 0.3 to 1 neighbourhood. Surely this can't get through. The developer has pushed the envelope to the limit. It ignores practically every recommendation of the ADG, which says, Principle 1, context and neighbourhood character. Good design responds and contributes to its context. Well-designed buildings respond to and enhance the qualities and identity of the area, including the adjacent sites, streetscape and neighbourhood. But I'm troubled that I read in your minute, Madam Mayor, that Ku-ring-gai Council is a referral body only in respect of SSDs, without any decision-making authority. Are these SSDs the embers blown ahead of the development fire that could burn your alternative proposal to the ground? In closing, I call upon our council to urgently get this alternative proposal gazetted so that we can move forward and do everything in its power to shut down these less than half-baked SSDs. Thank you.
Thank you, David. If I could just ask the residents oh no, that's okay. There doesn't seem to be any questions, so that's fine. But just for the future residents, if you could just wait there a few moments, just so I can see if councillors have any questions. But no, none. Okay, our next speaker is Janet Harwood, and she'll be speaking on GB1, which are the minutes of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee meeting held on the 12th of June 2025, and Janet will be speaking for that GB item. Thank you, Janet. And Janet, if you can just remain there because the next item is also yours when you finish.
I'm not sure whether I'll last that long because I've got a terrible cough. I just wanted to preface everything that I say is that this policy, we are not ready for the environmental breakdown that we face. And most recently, the planetary boundaries framework, I would say 99% of the people don't understand how serious that is. So my comments are in relation to some of the policies that are being followed. The Biodiversity Offsets Register is not visible, and issues such as the giveaway of last reserves of vegetation in a local government area of double significance is worth audit. It was found in 2020 that a wetland made by council in Barwon Road, South Tarramara, to offset a massive development on the same road, had been zoned a business park in LEP 2015. Further, in LEP 15, Sheldon Forest, the showpiece reserve for Ku-ring-gai Council, in its most valuable and vulnerable location, was zoned RE1, recreation, after a leased area of 550 square meters was increased to 1,600 square meters and aligned with an adjoining property. When the Auditor General, New South Wales, found anomalies with Crown land, it was noticed councillors, because I checked, councillors had adopted some reports which were flawed and incorrect. And it was wondered how many eco-assets are being force-fed to the development and recreation industry. volunteers should not do the work of an audit group in council. Yesterday, a St. Ives local resident alerted me to the Granny Springs and Kissing Point Road planning panel proposal silently put on public exhibition for just 3 weeks after new councillors had innocently adopted the recommendation to send it to gateway determination just before the local elections. Did they know that it was taking large public assets and in time the Granny Springs Reserve would go? I haven't finished, but never mind.
Okay. So if you could just stay there, Janet, because I know you're speaking on GB3, which is the Environment Committee minutes, June 2025, and I believe you're speaking against. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
To present a solution, because of this, that we're not ready for environmental breakdown, to present a solution is more important than to criticize, but you still must criticize. Anyway, a landscape museum, a transition town, and destination Ku-ring-gai has been suggested as a solution to overdevelopment that we are now facing, but it has not been heard. 15 years after the disbanding of 2 environmental sustainability committees, there has been, I was on them and I was dumped. Perhaps they didn't want to hear what I said. And I've learnt much in those 15 years, enough to be able to critically analyze what is happening with current problems in light of environmental breakdown. Air-conditioned decision-making, that is, if you don't go outside and see the conditions that we're talking about, allows wrong rezoning, no knowledge of cumulative environmental impact, no consideration of local conditions, and the system has not provided adequate protection zones. Height that everybody wants might occupy a smaller footprint, but it means much more cumulative impact by humans on the rarest vegetation that people don't know exist in this local government area. And the planning controls to protect that vegetation are so outdated. It's frightening, actually. These are just some of the flaws that are wiping out Australia's last environmentally sensitive areas. The Landscape Museum, the transition town located in destination Ku-ring-gai, as suggested, are the solution. I could go on, but I won't. I can't talk anymore. Thanks. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Janet. Doesn't look like there's any questions. Our next speakers are on GB11. So our first speaker is Natalie Boyd, who was speaking against, and the topic is Ku-ring-gai DCP local character areas.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a few things tied up in it all to give it context. I rise to speak as the owner of a heritage-listed property and as someone who supports smart strategic planning, but I speak today out of deep disappointment, ongoing disappointment with Council's so-called preferred scenario, which sacrifices people for numbers and leaves residents like me disaffected and unfairly impacted. The treatment of Gordon's east side, especially the area north of Park Avenue, known as HCAC 12, is a clear example of planning failure dressed up as heritage protection. Council has acknowledged in the mayoral minute and in previous meetings that Killara and Roseville are the priority for heritage conservation. And that's fine, but let's be honest. Gordon is not considered to have the same heritage value as Killara and Roseville. So please apply your planning principles with that established. HCA 12 sits in the middle of Gordon's newly designated town centre. It is bookended by surrounding SSDs, 6 and 10-storey developments, LMR, high density on all sides. Yet Council insists on retaining R2 zoning on this 2-hectare parcel of flat accessible land. Why? The reason given is too many heritage items, but in truth, this HCA includes 2 heritage homes of some value and 2 church buildings. That's it. But you won't know that because you haven't looked past the numbers. Gordon heritage is not being saved, it is simply being retained and we're being isolated. Who benefits from this? Not the current homeowners. Our property values have plummeted. I can attest to that. Not future residents who lose access to well-located housing, and not the broader community who value valuable heritage, the sort that you find in Killara and Roseville. The only benefit is a tally mark on Council's heritage items saved scorecard. You might recall last I spoke, I called out the total meets column that had been added to a Council report. Council's obsession with numbers has to stop. We're being managed to meet preferred statistics. You're also now proposing to remove density in the northeast of Gordon, but if heritage is so important, would you not instead address the fact that Erraldine is being faced down by multi-storey development and remove density instead from the north side of Macintosh? Adding insult to injury, the local character study, the piece I stood to speak about. The character study wrongly allocates our area to the Northern Plateau. What? How is our character not the same as the character of the houses across the road that Council's heritage study cites as directly contributing to the setting of the C12 HCA? At least the proposed corrections remove reference to Monavar Road as the area's southern boundary, but the statement still neglects to even mention Gordon in the suburb list itself. Yet this study forms a key part of your planning evidence base. Seriously, it's sloppy. And it's exhausting for us to keep correcting it. Finally, to the Heritage Committee report. The committee declines to make recommendations nor engage in the existential issues facing heritage owners and instead minutes its preference for the old zoning that was compatible with heritage items. They need a reminder that the horse has bolted. Council, your own documents lack transparency, accuracy and rigour. Your Heritage Committee offers no advice and minutes are outdated, and actively minutes outdated and irrelevant commentary. Tonight, I ask you to do better. I ask you again to do better. Stop playing the numbers game and holding on to old paradigms. Please, 1, comply with your own designation of Gordon as a town centre and delist the motley collection of heritage items and HCA C12. 2, correct the local character mapping. It's just wrong. And 3, hold a heritage forum, as I've asked for previously, with the heritage owners of Gordon. Have a real conversation with us because I know that we will all learn something. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'm very
Natalie.
happy to take any questions.
Oh, we have a question from his... Oh, okay, yep. Councillor Kim Wheatley.
Thank you very much for speaking, Natalie. Can we have that written detail that you've got?
Absolutely.
Could you please send that to myself and the other 9 councillors?
I would be very happy to. In fact, I was planning to put it together in a letter for the General Manager because there is so much, and this was pulled down to a 3-minute piece. I actually didn't realise I could speak for 6, so next time, beware. But yes, I will, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is Michael Clayton, who was also speaking on GB11, which is the Ku-ring-gai DCP, local character areas, and I've got you down here as speaking against.
Yes.
Thank you.
Correct. Thank you, mayors and councillors and council staff. I'd like to speak to the proposal to insert local character areas into Part 14 of the Ku-ring-gai DCP. While I understand the good intentions behind this amendment, I worry it risks adding yet another layer of complexity to our already risk-adverse and uncertain planning process at a time where our community needs clearer and more proactive pathways to deliver well-designed, diverse housing. My concern is primarily directed at the mechanism being proposed. What exactly are we asking applicants to be consistent with under the local character? Is it architectural style, building materials, garden treatments, or roof lines? Without clear definitions, this concept remains broad and subjective, placing more burden on applicants and staff alike, while offering little measurable benefit. I strongly urge the council staff to reflect on the kind of planning framework this creates. If we truly want to retain valued elements of Ku-ring-gai's built form, there are already planning tools available to do that. Codified controls that are objective, measurable, and transparent. We've seen this completed at a state level in Victoria, their townhouse and low-res code, where character expectations are translated into clear standards for setbacks, materials, and landscaping. These kinds of controls not only give certainty to applicants and the community, they also enable staff and the public to interrogate the outcomes. We can see with evidence which controls are preserving valued character, which ones are impeding architectural creativity, and which ones are simply blocking the diverse housing types we need. That kind of transparency and immeasurability is vital. Right now, vague character references offer little accountability for staff, applicants, and the public. I ask council staff to consider whether this approach brings us closer to a proactive, evidence-based planning system, or just makes an already complicated and costly process even harder to navigate. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Looks like there's no questions for you today, so thank you. Okay, the next item is GB14. So we've got two speakers online. It's the Middle Harbour Northern Catchment Flood Study, post-exhibition report. Our first speaker is Alex Collins. And Alex, if you can just tell me whether you're speaking for or against. I've just got it not specified here.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good evening. I'm speaking against the report.
Okay, thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. To all listening, I've lived in Blackburn Street, St Ives, for over 20 years. I've never seen any flooding, or any indication of flooding. We knew the previous owner, who was there for a further 20 years, who also hadn't seen any flooding or any indication of flooding. Although we're an obvious choice for a questionnaire, we were never consulted. The BMT report projections, even stated in the executive summary, are hypothetical. Flooding in that area is improbable. There is no existing flood behaviour. There was a culvert built at the bottom of Blackburn Street in the mid-1980s. A tree fell over that culvert. A large gum tree fell over that culvert in 2017. The council are aware of this and have refused to remove it. However, all council report photography excludes any indication there's a tree across the culvert. That's just intentionally misleading. We're 170 metres above the Sydney Basin on steep terrain. If St Ives were to flood, the city of Sydney will be 150 metres underwater. It looks from afar that the council is simply raiding state coffers by throwing its constituents under the bus. There are more worthy people of flood relief. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any questions for you, so I'll move on to our next speaker, David Stone, who is also speaking on GB14. So, I can see you on the screen. So whenever you're ready, David.
Hi, thank you.
And you're speaking against, is that correct?
I'm speaking against.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So, as an introduction, I'm an engineer with approximately 25 years working in flood risk management, including undertaking and leading preparation of many flood studies. I'm also a resident within the catchment of the Middle Harbour Northern Catchment Flood Study. Specifically, my property backs onto High Ridge Gully. I've been somewhat surprised that the flood study undertaken by the consultant on behalf of council haven't demonstrated that they've undertaken some basic checks on critical data used to inform this important study. Specifically, I'm referring to the use of LiDAR data, which, without going into the details, is a form of survey typically undertaken by using a laser attached to a plane, and it shoots lasers down and picks up ground levels. For a large area, but it has some significant limitations. In the flood study report prepared by the consultant, the limitations of this data are recognised, particularly in areas of dense vegetation, but they have provided no details of any assessment that they have undertaken to check and confirm this data is actually representative of the ground surfaces which it is supposed to represent. As it also happens, the mainstream flooded areas within the study area largely align with heavily vegetated areas. So we're using data that we know has limitations in heavily vegetated areas, and that happens to align with the flood affected areas and what we're trying to describe and analyse and understand the risk associated with that. The accuracy of the data and therefore the flood study is highly questionable, especially the level of accuracy that is applied by the flood study, which is to the nearest 100 millimetres. As an extreme example, using this LiDAR data, which is publicly available, and so I accessed it, it suggests there's a 2 to 3 metre high dam in the creek behind my house. Now, I can assure you there is no dam in the creek near my property. I'm pretty sure there are no 2 to 3 metre high dams or structures anywhere in any creek in the study area. But that is an example of the kinds of things that LiDAR data can at times pick up unless it is checked. All of this was pointed out to the consultant at the drop-in session, and it was confirmed that this 2 to 3 metre height dam was included in the data that they had included in their model. There is no evidence at all in the updated report, in the updated flood study that's been issued and is with council for adoption, that this was taken on board. The consultant has effectively just said, don't worry about it, we've got this covered. Given the limitations of one of these fundamental pieces of data used in this study, I strongly recommend council do not consider adopting this for the purposes of what it is supposedly for. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I've got a question from a councillor, so I will refer to Councillor Matt Devlin for your question or questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, David, for speaking on this, as well as Alex, if you're still online. Thank you for raising this. You won't be surprised to learn that you're not the first to flag this with councillors since the publication of the agenda for next week's meeting. As a way of a heads up to those that are all reaching out and have some concern, I understand there'll be a briefing a little bit later on it, but we have sought some clarifications on this. I'm supposed to be using this opportunity to ask a question. So my question, David, is can you please send me an email with some further information on this?
Sure, happy to. And I should say I've been corresponding with council officers over the past week to try and get this information or understanding, and they haven't been able to shed any light on it so far either. I think they're still trying, but anyway, I'm happy to send you that correspondence and as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I've got a question from Councillor Barbara Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not a question. I just wanted to thank David for sending us the email and also for presenting tonight and highlighting the issues to us. So thank you.
No problem. Thanks.
Okay, that looks like all the questions. Thank you, David. Okay, we'll just move to general business. So our first speaker is David Lane, who will be speaking on heritage and the Todd.
Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak again. Madam Mayor and councillors, ladies and gentlemen, I rise today to ask you to put on the July agenda a motion to waive or at least reduce planning proposals for heritage owners seeking to reassess their properties as a result of council's preferred housing scenario. I've sent the motion to the Gordon councillors as well as to the Ku-ring-gai councillors. I've even narrowed the motion so that it is very practical and very controlled. For those of you who don't know, I'm a 35-year resident of Ku-ring-gai. I live in a bungalow that's heritage protected, which has now been rezoned to R4 as part of the high-density plan that has been given to the state government. But let's be clear, I'm rise today not because I want to be here, it's because I'm caught in a no man's land between council and state government. These changes weren't done by the residents, they were actually done by government, and us residents are just reacting to it. So if I'm to give up my forever house for the greater good, then at least council can make a token effort in making that process easier. Council has been advised that they must follow the DPHI process. I'm fine, I'm willing to do that, but at what cost? I've already paid for a heritage report, I've already got an urban planner, I'm ready to meet with you guys, but you want $5,000 an hour to have a meeting, and I don't think that's reasonable. As I come back to my rhetorical question, why are the residents having to pay for this when it's not them who caused the problem? But furthermore, Minister Scully is on record of saying in a public forum, and I quote, "We need to make this process easier without all the fees, without all the blockages for the councils and for the homeowners." Mayor Christine Kay is on record on the ABC radio of saying, "I'm open to finding a solution. Maybe we can make a pathway to make it easier and cheaper." Well, ladies and gentlemen, the time for rhetoric is gone and the time for action has arrived. So that's why I'm asking you to put on the agenda for the July meeting a motion to be able to allow us to fully take part in the DPH process and put a small practical step of waiving those fees, which is entirely in council's control. Finally, let me say that I know no politician wants to be seen as anti-heritage, and what we're asking is not for you to vote against heritage. We're asking you to just bring your heritage plan up to date to your current alternative scenario, as your heritage plan is the LEP 2015. So your heritage stuff is outdated by more than 10 years. Also, I'd like to say if council tries to save every heritage property, in the end, council will save nothing. As already said very well by Natalie, not all heritage properties are the same. So that prioritization needs to happen. So I ask for your leadership, take this very small step and allow us to remove or reduce the fees for residents. And if I can have 15 more seconds, I'd like to say on a personal note, if I can, if nothing I've said resonates with any of you today, then let me just say this, which is if you actually do what I'm asking, I'll actually stop coming and speaking. And that alone must be motivation enough to be able to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam.
Oh, Sam, yes. Councillor Sam Knight's got a question or questions for you.
Yes, I've got a question. Thank you, David, for coming to speak. For your particular property, just to clarify, was that one of the cases where council initiated a interim heritage review or something like that, or was it a situation where you proposed it to become heritage listed? What was the history behind that?
Yeah, what's sitting on Claudia Luffer's desk, which is just senior heritage planner, is 3 reasons for mine to be delisted. Number 1, I listed it myself. Why did I do that? Because I was trying to stop another stupid state idea at the time, which was basically to merge Hornsby Council and Ku-ring-gai Council together. So it was listed by myself. Secondly, the heritage report that's now been done on it actually says that it doesn't have as much merit as it did 10 years ago, primarily because of what's gone on with context, and also given the fact that you're saving other bungalows and other parts of Ku-ring-gai. And then there's 3 or 4 other reasons that are listed there. But the answer to your question is I listed it myself.
Okay, and then just a follow-up question. Just clarifying a statement you made earlier. I didn't write it word for word, but why are the residents paying for this when council caused the problem? So would you clarify to say that that's a general statement that applies to 90% of the time? Or?
It's a statement that applies. So the advice you have from the state government under the state government's function of acting as a watchdog under the EPA Act of 1979 is that you have to follow the DPH process. It is on your website what that process is. One of that processes is you've got to get a heritage report done. I did that. I paid for it. B, you have to get an urban planner. I did that. I have one. And C, you have to pay council fees to file the paperwork as well as have an assessment meeting. And understand, no outcome is guaranteed from this. This is just $5,000 to have a meeting. Now, I love you guys, but I'm an IT consultant and executive across the world. I have customers in London, Germany, and the United States. I don't charge $5,000 an hour. Furthermore, I just had surgery the other day. I had a surgeon off of Macquarie Street. They didn't charge $5,000 an hour. They only charged $3,500 an hour. So I think the fees are a little overstated for what they need to be. And I understand you have $1 million shortfall. I read your note. But at the end of the day, charging us for something we didn't cause seems unreasonable.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, sorry, one more question from Councillor Matt Devlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. David, thank you very much for speaking again this evening and your continued correspondence. I would just like to flag, you sent an email last week, a response from the Executive Director of Strategic Planning and Policy for the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure. You shared that with all the councillors. I appreciate the response that you've received from the department, and it does confirm that the TODCEP has been paused effective since the 13th of July. That does fly in direct contrast to some other statements made publicly by other councillors who aren't here this evening. But putting that aside, my question to you is, are you able to send us a copy of the correspondence you provided to the department for which this response has been shared with us, just to fill in the missing gaps?
I thought I had done that, but I'm happy to do that. And more importantly, I'll share with all the councillors the motions I've already sent to the Gordon councillors and the Wahroonga councillors, which is what I'm asking for, which, as I said, is a motion to waive the fees. And I've offered 3 possible ways to narrow it so you make sure that it's very specific to the people affected.
Has that proposed resolution, Mr. Lane, has that changed from your email dated 1st of July?
It may have been even, as usual, I probably refined it. It may have been refined since that one. It's basically the general thing, but I decided to put in case you thought it was going to be open slather, I decided to put in provisions so that therefore it narrows it to a certain number of residents. And I've left alternatives on how you guys want to write it.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Mr. Lane. Thank
No
you,
worries.
Thank you, David. Our next speaker is Kevin Nin Su, who will be speaking on the topic of acquisition of our family home, 63A, Dumeric Street, Gordon.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and good evening, fellow residents. My name is Kevin, speaking on behalf of my 3-generation family, elderly parents, in-laws, wife, children, myself. In April 2024, Council approved our DA to build a home at C3A Dumeric Street, Gordon. Since then, we have committed over $2.5 million and poured our hearts into creating a home to share across generations. But in November 2024, mid-construction, Council property manager unexpectedly offered to acquire a property for open space. This was shocking and confusing. We relied on the DA approval in good faith, believing our property was suitable for residential use. To our knowledge, no proper site visit, due diligence, or meaningful consultation occurred beforehand. We've since spent nearly $28,000 on legal advice defending our right to live in a home Council approved with no reimbursement, despite the Land Acquisition Act requiring it. Then in March 2025, we learned our land may be rezoned to public recreation, implying possible compulsory acquisition and demolition. This has brought enormous stress to our family. Our parents are anxious, our children heartbroken, and we fear losing our home. We do not oppose Council's vision for more public spaces. We simply ask for fairness, clarity, and compassion. We share our story here in the hope no other family will have to go through this pain. We would be truly grateful for any support and certainty to complete and enjoy the home we built with love and trust in the system. We love Ku-ring-gai and want to keep building our lives here. We hope Council shows the care, fairness, and transparency that vulnerable residents like us can rely on. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Our next speaker is Natalie Boyd. Oh, sorry. I can't see a hand. Okay, no worries. Sorry, Councillor Nye, they thought you had your hand up, but I believe you don't. Our next speaker is Natalie Boyd. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Oh, okay, no worries. Thank you, Natalie. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to our next speaker, which is Jane Garling, the Todd Development 24 to 34 Stanhope Road, Killara. Whenever you're ready, Jane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and neighbours. As opposed to other submissions tonight, I'm speaking just in relation to one application, and that's for development on the site of the former Dalcross Hospital, which I'm sure everyone here tonight knows of. So the corner of Warona Avenue and Stanhope Road. The application is for 5 residential towers comprising 438 apartments. That's 1,000 people, where about 20 would currently live. I'm speaking tonight just on 2 matters of amenity. Firstly, if the aim of the Todd policy was to encourage development close to transport, this would be the worst possible example of a development fitting within the matrix, but failing to satisfy the intention of easy access to transport for residents or future residents. The site is on a crest of a hill, one of the highest points in Killara, with Killara Station at its base on the northern side, so that access from the station for residents is up a steep hill with a significant incline. As to other amenities, there is only one shop within 1 kilometre of the site. That's the Cruel Goblin, Australia's premier needlecraft shop in Marion Street, Killara. For all needs other than needlecraft, the closest shops are down at Linfield Village, at the southern base of the Killara Hill, and requiring the negotiation of another substantial incline when walking home with shopping. This would be particularly challenging for those accessing the senior living component of the proposed development. Within the limited information provided, there appears to be no access for delivery vehicles, taxis or Ubers should residents require home delivery, and there is no parking adjacent to the site. There's none in Warona Avenue, and the Stanhope Road has only 3 sites for parking on the southern side of the street. No significant green space for residents is proposed by the development. The closest park is Selkirk Park across the railway lines, once again at the northern base of a steep hill. As to local infrastructure, the provision of water and sewerage to this area is already under significant strain. And I should say at this point, I'm sorry I didn't earlier, that I live at 18 Springdale Road, so that's 5 houses along from the proposed development. The water and sewerage was built over a century ago, and the infrastructure has recently suffered a number of major failings, most recently on Friday, 16 May, outside 7 Springdale Road, resulting in severe flooding and no water for local residents for the best part of a day and night. I understand that while this rupture was repaired, the entire system requires overhaul. This plan promotes, as I said, 438 apartments, so this already strained infrastructure may have a catastrophic result in the future. I seek to just commend Council for its work in seeking an amended TOD and look forward to hearing further negotiations with the state government on this. Thank you.
I have a question.
We have a question from Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thanks for coming along, Natalie. I very, very strongly agree.
Jane.
Jane, I beg your pardon. Jane, sorry. Strongly agree with you. And this feels very much like the experience that we've had elsewhere across the TOD stations with just a handful of SSDs that are fundamentally incompatible with our alternative TOD. My question for you is, are you and any of your associates aware that the consent authority for this SSD is the Minister of Planning, and that all of your submissions will need to go to the Minister through the Department of Planning?
Well, we understand that this is all new to us, by the way. We've received no formal notification other than a neighbour knocking on my door on Friday afternoon. Yes, we understand that the process is through the department, but as I understand it, Council has a role to play in making a submission if it chooses to do so. And my request is that you do make that submission opposing this development.
Can I ask a follow-on question? So second question, thank you for that. Are you aware that Council is systematically making comprehensive submissions on every single SSD? They are available to read, and would you mind if I recommend that you read some of the opposing submissions that we've made on the other SSDs that have had their public exhibition periods close? Those documents are available, and we are fully and wholeheartedly behind you.
Well, thank you very much. We have very limited information because the plan only has come to us through a scoping study, and no environmental impact study has been prepared, and yet it was able to be filed and accepted within the time period, which seemed quite strange to us, but here we are. But thank you for that recommendation, and those studies are available, or those submissions are available on the website. Is that right? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, but they're good comparables. I'm not allowed to ask any more questions.
No, maybe have a chat after the forum. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Mayor.
Our next speaker is Janet Harwood. New South Wales Planning Secretary must stop institutionalising wildlife killing by rezoning of soils and seed bank needed for survival economics.
Madam Mayor, General Manager, ladies and gentlemen, councillors, I've been following this issue since rezoning first began in 2003, and I can say very clearly that it is not so much elected government's fault, but the executive planners, or planning, the executive level, in the Department of Planning. And this has come out time and again, and this is why I'm resorting now to arguing the issues that are being heard tonight on an environmental basis, because that point is not being made. It's very much a human-centered argument. Force-feeding the development industry has become the function of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. It doesn't care about anything else except development. Melbourne has about 8,000 empty units. Sydney has even more. Rezoning for development without protection, updated protection updated to the age of environmental breakdown, is not happening. The policy in planning is so outdated. And it is adding to the shocking scale of wildlife killing in India. Sorry, not in India, that's where I come from. Wildlife killing in Australia. And why is that so? Because by not protecting the rare vegetation, soil and seed bank, we are converting to concrete, bitumen, and synthetic grass now the regenerative capacity of the habitat for wildlife. And Australia has this huge problem. If you look up the conversation, planetary boundaries, Australia has already exceeded 3 of the survival planetary boundaries. So, rezoning for development is a key threatening process, and it goes back to 2003, but as somebody mentioned just now, LEP 2015 is ancient, it's antiquated, and it's 10 years old, and this is what we are suffering now. It is more interesting to talk about sport and politics, but if we don't address these issues now, it's the survival of our kids and the wildlife that will maintain the ecosystems that they need to survive that are being destroyed. So, that is where the Landscape Museum comes in, and the transition town in destination Ku-ring-gai comes in. This should be the new way of planning an advanced landscape for protection. Remove all the openings for the SSDs. We don't need all that. We've had plenty of overdevelopment up to LEP 2015, and now we're getting even more. So,
if you could just, you've expired your time, Jennifer. If you can just maybe wrap it up quickly.
All these issues are colliding, and we do need to test in the most environmentally sensitive areas, such as Ku-ring-gai, the new way of using land. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Our next speaker is Brooke Fawcett. SSDs lodged outside of the agreed TOD mapping.
I know there are a few people here to speak about a specific example of SSDs. I've lodged a written submission where I put in mapping. I want to speak about the submissions outside Council's approved zones. There are 27 SSDs lodged in the 4 centres that were identified as the TOD zones. Some of those most recent applications are best described as back-of-the-napkin proposals. In my mapping that I used your maps for, I've highlighted 9 individual applications that are not only outside Council's agreed alternative design solutions in terms of height and FSR, but they're totally outside your mapping. Some of those are outside the government's TOD mapping, completely outside. Those 9 development sites alone will add an extra 1,913 dwellings to the Ku-ring-gai area. Just those 9 sites. One of them, as some people have already spoken to on Dalcross, has 435 apartments in 5 9-storey buildings. That's more than 10% of the entire dwellings in Kalara as listed in the last census, on one site. There's a site on Trafalgar Avenue and Valley Road at Linfield that's 33 metres high in an area that Council has designated as 9.5 metres high. They're outrageously over your agreed and alternative mapping scenario. We've spent months and months trying to get that stuff across. Now, I appreciate the point that the councillors have made that this is not in Council's hands, but we're asking, you are currently in mediation in the next 2 weeks before this court case gets settled with the government to get this stuff either accepted, our alternative scenario, or not. We're asking very specifically that you mediate these 9 sites out of that proposal and be literally rejected outright. We can't say that this stuff is out of your hands when currently you have an opportunity to mediate these 9 sites. We can't have spent all of this time on this Todd proposal alternative scenario and then say, but those sites outside are fine because they're already in. We will lose this opportunity to negotiate on these sites if council doesn't mediate that in their current negotiations with government. And that's what we're asking you to do.
Okay, looks like we have a question from Councillor Alec Taylor.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Madam Mayor. And thank you for coming along and talking about this issue. It truly is a horrific situation. And I'm acutely aware of the SSDs that you're talking about, particularly the Trafalgars, the Lord Streets. There's one on Nelson Road.
There's 9.
They are shocking and terrible and inconsistent with our Todd plan. Have you read the mediation agreement that we formed in, I believe it was November of last year? It's a 1-page summary of the agreement with the New South Wales state government, which explicitly, unfortunately, highlights that though we asked the state government to put the Todd on hold, they went out of their way to deliberately enable these SSDs and save them.
Can I speak to that?
Please.
So I'm talking about, you said that was in November last year. I'm talking about now. You're in mediation right now to stop court cases and things like that. So whatever happened in November last year, that was before your alternate scenario and before you put together your plan and said to the government, this is what we're going to do. So what happened in November last year is frankly irrelevant.
Okay, just a quick follow-up. Would you appreciate that we formed a deal with the state government and that we need to fulfil our obligations under that deal? We're in good faith. We need to do what we said we would do with the state government.
Which is the point of your alternative plans. I'm saying these 9 developments are outside of that mapping area, very specifically outside the government's mapping area, outside your mapping area.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
I have another question for you from Councillor Kim Wheatley.
Thanks for coming along tonight, Brooke. The pieces of paper that you held up at the beginning of the night, could I ask that you send those to all 10 councillors so that we can see?
Happy to.
What,
Every site's identified and highlighted outside of that mapping. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Councillor Martin Smith.
Yeah, thank you for coming this evening. I'm just checking, have you had the opportunity to put your concerns or raise your concerns directly with the state government at all?
Yeah, we're in the process of doing that now, but we found out about this meeting yesterday. So,
I ask who with?
who did we lodge the?
Oh, sorry, no, you're progressing it with somewhere with the state government. You're meeting
Yeah,
somebody.
we're basically collating a list of names in the government and outside of the government of who to
Okay, so
contact
you're sending information.
Yes.
All right, thank
Multiple
you.
people.
I'd just like to assure you that every councillor here and all the staff are actually quite devastated by what's going on. So I can assure you that there is a lot of work going on in the background that you probably don't recognise. I know that actions speak louder than words, but I can assure you we're doing as much action as we can.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to do. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Brooke. Okay, we have a speaker who wasn't registered to speak that would like to speak now, and that is David Whittle. Submission opposing development at 24 to 34 Stanhope Road, Killara, SSD 858-459-58. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I live in Springdale Road, very near the site of the proposed development on what has been Dalcross Hospital and surrounding properties. I want to speak about the massive impact that this proposal would have on traffic in the immediate area and well beyond. As you know, the corner of Stanhope Road and Warona Avenue is already quite literally an accident waiting to happen. The addition of many hundreds of new residents within 50 metres of that intersection most of whom will have cars, can only make things catastrophically worse. The intersection is arguably the main way across the railway line for those who want to cross from the west side of the railway to the east side, including on the way to Killara High School, and it's also an utterly key intersection on the back road from Gordon to Linfield, and already at busy times of the day there are often cars banked up significantly in both directions. Access for residents and visitors to these buildings is likely to be from both Stanhope Road, already overloaded, and even worse could be from Warona Avenue. The development proposal, as currently very preliminary articulated, is likely to provide inadequate parking. So there would be more cars stuck in traffic locally and on a key artery between Killara, Linfield and Gordon, and many, many more cars parked in the immediate area, which would also add greatly to the danger of narrow streets as hundreds of cars try to traverse the area every day. That's only after completion of the construction. The construction phase itself, probably 1 to 2 years, is likely to be chaos. There's no obvious provision for large machines such as trucks and earth-moving equipment to come in and out of the site from these busy roads. That's not something that even an army of people with lollipops and makeshift traffic signals will be able to manage. It won't be manageable. I'd like to emphasise that I'm not opposed at all to reasonable development. The issue here is the size and scale of this proposed development, and of course it is outside Council's revised Todd proposal that was sent to the state government at about the end of May. It will not only inconvenience people on a daily basis all the way from Gordon to Linfield, it will greatly increase the chances of an accident on what is already a dangerous corner. So I can only implore councillors to do whatever is in their power, and obviously I've heard the previous comments about the process, but I can only implore you to do whatever is in your power in negotiating with the state government to make sure that this development is not approved anywhere near its current form.
Okay, David, it looks like, thank you. We have a question from
Thanks, David.
Councillor Alec Taylor, if you wouldn't mind waiting till I finish. Thank you.
Thanks, David, for coming along and talking about this very important subject. Have you, firstly, can I reiterate that Council will be making a submission. Our submission will be comprehensive and cover very many elements of planning for this state significant development. My question is, have you considered forming a group with your fellow neighbours and even soliciting professional advice on, for example, the matter of traffic and the potential impact on
So the answer to those questions is yes and yes. A number of us, I mean, as Jane and others articulated, we have come to this fairly recently and have been trying to get our heads around all the information and the implications, but we are in discussions with each other and we are aware that there are people who would be likely to be able to assist us.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That looks like there's no more questions for you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Elizabeth DeBar. State significant development outside of the revised Todd, in particular SSD 858-45958. Whenever you're ready, Elizabeth.
Could I just ask that these be distributed to the Mayor and Councillors? Just some...
Yep, sure.
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, Councillors and all present, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you on this very concerning issue. I'm also speaking about the Dalcross site development. I agree with my neighbours who've spoken before me on this subject, and I would just like to add some further information. This proposed development is massive in scale and bulk. As mentioned, it would increase the number of dwellings in Killara by over 10% on a single site. They propose 9 stories on one of the highest points in Killara, so it will appear as closer to 11 stories from many vantage points. It will dominate the skyline for miles around. It is completely out of keeping with any buildings in Killara, including other apartment block developments. Ku-ring-gai is home to some of the most beautiful and historically significant heritage listed items in Sydney. Within 200 metres of this development site are more than 20 heritage-listed items. The first diagram that I've handed out there gives you an idea of how this development is surrounded by heritage homes. The loss of privacy, the overshadowing and the visual impact of this development on all these homes and more will be devastating. There is no point suggesting that Council will help to get these homes delisted. We have been informed that this is very unlikely to happen. This is not just another heritage conservation area with pretty Californian bungalows and the like. Most of the items you will see on that map are unique heritage items listed for their individuality and the historically significant people who resided there in the past. They can never be replaced. Allowing development that completely destroys their outlook and amenity is just another way of disregarding and devaluing heritage. Ku-ring-gai Council has always had a very proactive approach to protecting our beautiful heritage. The state government's cookie-cutter approach to creating a TOD was always going to be a disaster, and you and the Council worked hard to find an alternative solution. Please do not back down now. Many residents are also aware of drainage and geotechnical issues associated with development on this site. Many of us in Arnold Street, which is where I live, have been flooded by water runoff from this site already, and the huge increase in hard surface area will make this even more of a problem. A geotechnical report for 5A Arnold Street showed that bedrock was encountered between 1.7 and 2.5 metres below the surface. In order to create the expected 400+ car spaces required for this development, there would be considerable excavation through this bedrock. The potential for structural damage to surrounding heritage properties is very significant, not to mention the noise and vibration which will make surrounding properties unlivable during construction periods. Lastly, I refer you to the petition which you have in front of you. Prior to this meeting, the last count we had was over 200 signatures on a petition which was only started yesterday. The people of Killara, as well as anyone who values heritage, tree canopy and the agency of local government to determine the best way to increase dwellings, are giving you a message. We are incredibly grateful that you felt so strongly that you took the state government to court over this issue. Please don't waver now. As part of your mediation process, please ensure that along with the state government accepting your revised TOD, they must agree to throw out any SSDs which would make a mockery of your hard work and your considered and sensible vision for Ku-ring-gai. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I've just got a... just a quick question. Would you like us to table this petition at the next meeting?
I would love that.
I know
Thank
it's still active, so did you want to wait closer to the time and forward it through
Whichever
to
date
us?
you would like, I will give you the latest numbers and signatures if
Okay,
you like.
no worries, we can do that for you.
Thank you.
I can't see any other questions from councillors, so thank you.
Thank you.
And looks like we have our last speaker for the evening, which is Archie DeBar, opposition to SSD outside revised TOD.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow neighbours. Once again, I'm here to show our opposition to this state significant development 85845958, which proposes 430 odd apartments in 5 residential towers, up to 9 stories high, on the Dalcross site, bordered by Springdale Road, Stanhope Road and Warona Avenue. I'm particularly taken by the fact that there was no environmental impact study submitted for this proposal, no architectural drawings. All we have is a very basic scope that a year 5 student could have made up. There's no details of solar access and overshadowing impacts on local neighbours. And Elizabeth previously has detailed that this is been undertaken in a heritage conservation area, blowing apart any pretense for maintenance of heritage and things of that nature. So why are we opposing this? We feel that the council is still in mediation with the Department of Planning and has the ability to make a more than meaningful opposition or challenge to this seemingly politically motivated unilateral government action. Why is it politically motivated? Well, there seems to be fast-tracking of certain proposals by a new body, the Housing Authority that delivers, or Housing Authority Delivery Group. They've mandated that no environmental impact statement was required with the submissions, and we have yet an unexplained reason for why there was extension granted for lodgement of these submissions after the proposed date of the revised TOD that was adopted by the council. I think most of you would agree that this planning proposal is completely unsympathetic with the surrounding environment and streetscape. Adding 10% of dwellings in the suburb in one development proposal is quite out of scope with reality. People haven't mentioned the environmental aspects of this. I'm sorry I'm taking a little bit longer, but...
No, you've still got 20 seconds to go.
I hope you give me a little bit more time.
All right, I will. You're the last speaker, so I'll be a little bit generous.
So, from the environmental aspects of this, Ku-ring-gai has maintained green canopies, which are probably the leading local government area within the city or within urban local government areas to do this. If you look at the way Sydney has been developed, the green canopy provides us with some buttress against climate change. In particular, it allows us to, during extensive periods of heat, it drops the temperature by up to 5 degrees because of the shade perspective. The large, tall trees and vegetation can soak up carbon dioxide and in a way that is beneficial to our activity to buttress or to balance the effects of climate change. Along with that, there's also the flora and fauna in the area. So because it's such a leafy district, there are a number of little reserves around the place. And from our vantage point, just south of the proposed submission, there are powerful owls, which are an endangered species. There are lots of kookaburras. There's an inordinate amount of bird life. There are echidnas. We've encountered many such flora, and these will all be further damaged, or they'll be further endangered as a result of this proposal for this area. So the local flora and fauna is a critical issue. My wife has mentioned the geotechnical aspects, which we are all concerned about downstream of this site when the excavations take place. And finally, I think we're all concerned about the disruption to our local community if this proposal were to go ahead on any number of aspects that have been discussed already. So I guess I'm summing up some of our arguments. I'm saying that we need the council to continue the good work that you've done in the past to try and maintain this area in the way it has been argued for and delivered over many years. I'm sorry, just excuse my shaking for now, but no. It's obviously something that we've only just encountered. We know we have to lobby outside of the council, but the council is in a position of mediation at the moment where they can take a position to strongly oppose these developments for being considered or approved, particularly the ones that are outside the TOD, the revised TOD footprint. I think I might stop there. Okay, thank you.
No worries. It looks like there's no questions for you, Archie, so thank you.
I'll keep you up a little bit longer.
Oh, okay. Councillor Martin-Smith has a question.
I was just looking through the petition list here, which I just want to say I want to thank everybody here for understanding that the council is actually representing the community, doing everything it possibly can with this Labor government that is intent to push this through. Has there been, when I'm looking at a list like this, and it's quite extensive, has there been any sort of talk about people turning up to Macquarie Street, to the state government, to let them see the residents that are directly affected with this? because sometimes as council we negotiate in the back rooms and the back doors where we're dealt with accordingly. But just one thing to keep in mind, it's much harder to deal with residents when they're turning up at Macquarie Street uninvited at particular meetings. That can certainly draw attention to this matter, which really needs to be drawn attention to. So in any case, I think it's great to see that you're all banding together, and it shows that the people of Ku-ring-gai aren't prepared just to sit by and stand by and let it happen. Thank you.
Did you want to answer that question?
Look,
that's entirely up to you.
I think we're all on the same page here. I think this is an indiscriminate action taken by a department of the state government, which we all feel is inappropriate for this area. It's ill-conceived. This particular proposal is ill-conceived. It's been sort of put forward at the drop of a hat, on the back of a napkin, as someone said. I'm sure that there are many issues that we have to deal with, people that we have to lobby. It's not just the council that we need to lobby, but various other members of the government and whatnot. And we have started that process, but we've only been aware of this issue for a number of days, and it's early in our objection or our challenge to move forward. So we're happy to work with council. Obviously, we know that you've been working for us in this area, but we need your full support as we go forward.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Archie. Now, that is the conclusion of our meeting. So thank you to everyone for participating in tonight's public forum. The webcast of this forum will be published to Council's website tomorrow. The Council meeting will be held at 7 p.m. next Tuesday, and you are encouraged to attend in person or view the live web stream via the Council website. I encourage you to continue to stay engaged with Council and share your feedback. Thank you again for your participation, and I declare the meeting closed at 8:16 p.m. Thank you.